In this tutorial, we're going to learn how we can make an abstract animation using a cloner. Hi guys, this is Joseph from Joe Concepts. How are you doing? How's everything with you guys? I hope everything is fine. I'm excited to come with a new tutorial. I was playing around with MoGraph and animation, trying to create an abstract designs, and I came up with something like this, and I thought maybe I could make a tutorial about it. I dropped this last Sunday, dropped the teaser to this, and I said I was going to drop and the tutorial about this Sunday, but I'm sorry the tutorial could not come yesterday. I was so busy and that's why I didn't come. But we are going to look at how we can create this animation. You can already see this animation of this abstract design trying to rotate around, and also the texture. If you notice the texture being moving from this landscape to a portrait one, that is the trickish part of it. Every other thing is easy, but that texturing is what I'm going to look into. So without further ado, let's go into the tutorial and see how we can go about this. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is to start creating our assets. So I'm going to start with the frame. So I'm going to create this and orbit around. So I want to have the width to be 200 and the height to be 100. So this is going to be the frame for my design. So the next thing is to drop in an end-sided, then scale this down. I'm not actually working to scale, so I'm just scaling this down, then bringing down my sweep, bring both of them into the sweep, making sure the hierarchy is maintained, having the end-sided first before the rectangle, so it sweeps this around that. So I want to round this up so that I can have the edge of this frame being defined. If you notice, this is not really defined, so I want it to catch the light. So I can still scale this down a little bit. I don't want it to be too much. So once I'm done with that, the next thing I'm going to do is to create the picture holder. So I'm going to use a cube. Then for the z-axis, I might need to bring this to, let's say 10. Might be too much, so let's try 4. Maybe that is fine. Then the height, don't forget the value we use for this. I want to maintain the same value. So for the height, I'm making this height 100 and this is 200. So this whole thing fills up this, so I can, okay, that is fine, that is fine. So we have that. So the next thing we are going to do is, if you look at the animation that I have, if you notice this animation, you tend to see that, sorry, let me just bring this back out. So you notice that some parts of this frame is being dissolved and cut off while you have the inner part. So basically what I did was to have another outer frame and the inner one. I hope that makes sense. So the inner one is one holding the texture, and the outer one is the one I'm adding the animation to. So let's see how we can go about that. So maybe I want this to be the inner one, so I will just come here, reduce this value, making sure I keep the scale, the proportion. Then I'm going to make this let's say 150, or let's say 120. Then this is going to be 120 divided by 2, which is 60. So this is going to be the inner frame of this. So let's still bring this down. So maybe, okay, let's hold on with that. Then for me to do the outer part, what I just need to do is just duplicate this one as soon as I have this duplicate, and I'm going to bring it into, okay, so I'm going to duplicate that for me to have this. So let me just hide this first. So for me to have this outer part, then for the inner part, don't forget the value I have for this place, which is 120 by 60. So I'm going to create another one. I'm just control dragging to have a second one. So let me hide this quickly. Then this second one, I'm going to put the width to be 120 and the height to be 60. So I have the one holding that. So now the idea behind this other one that I want to animate is so that I will be able to reach into this section and break it off. So for me to do that, I will put it inside a connect, inside the connect object, bring both here. So this becomes one, or should I? Okay, I'm going to do an extrude first before the connect. So bring this here, then select the extrude, go to hierarchical. You should, okay, so this should come out, so we can have this. So this is going to be, maybe I want to hide this first. Alright, so we have this. Maybe I would need to bring this first before I put it inside the extrude. Alright, so this gives me what I'm looking for. But then the thickness that I had a thickness here, if you remember, it's 4 centimeters. So I'm going to go to the extrude, make this 4 centimeters. So everything looks, so if I'm to unhide this, it flushes in with it, and everything should, okay. So we have this 4 centimeters. So that means what we're going to do is we need to bring this up. We need to bring it towards the negative z side. So let's come here, come to the coordinates. So negative z, let's just say -1, -2, and that settles this. All right, so we now have then we now have the frame on at the top of everything. So this is pretty much how I made the rig. I have the, so let me start naming this. So this is going to be the picture holder. So this is going to be the one I'm going to animate. Cut frame. I don't know what I'm writing, but then this is going to be the frame itself. So let's start setting things up. So I'm going to come here and bring up my cloner, MoGraph cloner, then put the frame inside the cloner. So the first thing I'm going to see is I'm going to see that the frame is cloned linearly. So I'll go to the cloner, change it from linear to radial, then I'm going to have this. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the orientation from XY to ZX. So we have this design. Another thing is, if you come to the transform, or you come to okay, so we can make this 360 to start with. So that is the setting I'm having here first. So notice that this jumps here and I have the other frame. So for me to make sure everything goes into the same object, so I'm going to bring this whole setup as a child of this. So everything comes here. So we have this. So what is happening is that the cloner is reading this sweep. So every other thing inside the sweep as the children of the sweep are also going. Now, the reason why I didn't make this directly as a child of the sweep is because the sweep only needs 2 splines. So I don't want to bring in geometry. So that's why I'm bringing this geometry as a child, as children to this spline. So the sweep does not read these other 2. It only reads these 2 sweep splines. So That is how I did that. Then the next thing is to start animating this. So let's start the animation process. So before then, I'm going to hit Ctrl D to go to my project setting, change this to 24 frames per second, go to my render settings, also change this to 24, so everything is in sync. So if I go to this cloner, what I want to do is to be able to animate. If you notice this, the animation is coming and moving around, and you have all these things. So how can I achieve that? Now if you come to this and I start animating the angle, it doesn't give me what I want. I want everything to move first before I start. So now before I got this effects, it took me a lot of time. It took me time to get that. So basically what I did was to come to the transform tab of the cloner and change, I think, this value. No, not this value. No, yes, this value. Just bring it back a little bit so it is not on the same level with that. So I'm just bringing it back. Let's just say 60 or thereabouts, or depending on the radius of the rotation, then that will be determined by this value. So if I make this smaller value, then the rotation, the radius of rotation will be smaller. If you want it to be more intense, you increase this value here. So let me show you what you have here. So if I come here and come back to this and I act on this rotation, you start seeing the effect. And what I'm going to do is take this to, let's say, 90. Alright, so let's start the animation process. So I'm starting from frame 4, go back to 360, add a keyframe to this, then move my timeline to, let's say, 48, make this 0. Then I'm going to have this effect, but then I'm still going to animate this. So what I do is I add a kind of offset to it. So let's just say immediately after 4 seconds or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds, I keyframe this. Then immediately after 8 seconds to this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I bring this also to 0, so everything comes back. So if I'm to play this together, this is what you're going to have. Alright, so that is the first thing to this animation. You have this moving out and coming in. Then the next thing is, if you notice, the animation starts from a landscape and gradually rotates into a portrait. So how I came about this was coming to the cloner and going to the transform. So what I want to do is to change this value. Just look at one of the rotation. So I'm changing that rotation. So what I'm going to do is, as this thing comes up here, I want to start the rotation from this point. So I'm going to keyframe that. Then as it ends here, I'm going to make the rotation 90. Then keyframe. So if I'm to play this thing together, I'm going to see this moving and changing to that. So that's how that was made. You can already see. So but if I want this rotation to start earlier, I can just scroll that backwards and rotation starts from there and comes in. So you can already see the way it's moving. So that is how I did that. But then the next thing I did was to make sure that some parts of this frame, the outer parts, the one I'm intending to break off, are breaking up before it comes and comes back. So what I did was to add this part of this object, which is the frame, and only this frame, was to add it into a Voronoi fracture. So holding down Alt, put it in a Voronoi. So this will break this section down. So I may need to come here, and if you notice, because this object is this. I don't have source here. I don't have source, so I can just add distribution source to it. But before I start adding source, what I want to do is I want to make it a single object. So we have that. Now the reason why I'm making this a single object is by the time I start animating, I want to have this to be a whole object and all that. So let's see if I add more source. Now go to this source, increase this value. Okay, we are not seeing any effects. I tried checking why the effect wasn't coming. This breaking was not coming. I don't really know. So let me select this and pull down Alt and put it in a connect object. So this connect object is going to connect this. Then we have this. We can take this off since this is not working for us. So what I did to this was to select this Voronoi, come to mode graph and go to plane. Then plane will shift everything up, and that is not what I want. So I'm going to bring this position back. What I want to animate is I'm animating the position too, but not towards that direction. I want to animate the rotation, so more like this. So maybe this and that. So then once this thing is animating, I want it to either move backward or forward. So if you want it to move backward or forward, just scroll down this. But I don't want it to affect everything as a whole. So what I did was to go to the plane and go to fall off, then change it to linear, then just change the orientation of the linear fall off 90, then go back, make the fall off 100%, then E for my move tool. So basically what I did was to come here. Alright, so maybe I want this to come out even more than that, so I can just scroll this down, and if I want it to scale down as it moves, I will just change it to -1. So everything scales down, then as I move it comes and gradually rotates and comes back. So I'm going to increase these values, rotation value, so we have just changing this. So if I move this, everything comes back. Alright, so I will come here, invert this, so the rotation starts from here and goes out. Alright, so the next thing is to start animating this stuff here. So I'm bringing this here, so I'm just showing you the idea behind that. So I'm starting from here. As this thing goes from this place, I'm going to keyframe the Z position of the plane effector. Then as it moves up to, I think the animation ends at 56, so let's say somewhere here. Let's just say somewhere here. So I'm going to bring in this, maybe not totally, then keyframe that. Then as it goes back to 56, I want it to move back, then keyframe. So if I'm to check this, this is what I'm going to have. Alright, so maybe I want to bring this up a little bit, then I want to have room before it ends, after the animation gets up. Then okay, this, okay, maybe this position is here. Oh, sorry. I was animating the Z position, so I'm going to animation delete track. So what I'm going to do is from 4 I will keyframe this. As it gets here, bring this out, keyframe that, then as it comes back I'm bringing it back, keyframe that. So if we check this together, this is what we're going to have. Alright, so this is just something. So if you like that, you can just go with that. But then if I come to this Voronoi, I don't want to have this coloration, so I can just take off the coloration. Then I'm going to now, okay, so see this animation. If you check this animation and you notice this, the reason why we have this is because here I made it hierarchical. Okay, if not hierarchical, here I made it single object. So but then that is why you can see that. And also because I've connected it to a connect object, so it has made it a geometry instead of shape. So that is how I did that. Now that is just pretty much about the animation, but the trickish part is now the texturing. The trickish part about this is the texturing. So let me start texturing this. So this is going to be the frame, so I want it to have a brownish color, just simple brownish frame. So this is going to be for the frame, then white color for the outer parts, and this is now the image. So this will be the image holder, the one holding the image. So let's start adding texture. So I have some textures that I'm going to add there. So I'm going to use 2 of these. By the way, I downloaded this on Google, so you could just search for images on Google. So I'm going to use these 2 this time. So this, I'm going to create 2 textures actually. So drag this to my color channel, and this comes up here. I'll say no. So this is going to be my portrait. Then I'm going to have a landscape. So control drag. So for me to have this is going to be my landscape. Then I think I have what I'm going to use for the landscape. So this is going to be for the landscape. So I have a landscape and I have that. So at this position, you can see what the portrait image is doing to this object. So I'm going to drag this landscape here. So this looks nice, fine. But by the time I get to this portrait design, see what happens to this. And that is not what I want. I want to have this portrait here, but this portrait is being seen it's been turned upside down. So the thing about this thing is, select the portrait, then I need to convert this, but then let's see if conversion will not work. So once you select this portrait, I will go to the texture tag here. Then it allows me to rotate this tag, but then this only works when it is in cubic mode. So as soon as it is in cubic mode, then I will be able to rotate this texture here for me to have this one. So I'm rotating this 90 degrees, exactly 90 degrees. Then I can go back to my this, then I can scale this down so that I can have my design. So let's scale this down so that I will have. So what I'm doing now is just to arrange this so that it doesn't get, so let's say 35 and probably 50. Then let's start changing this position of all these things. So if I feel this is, so I think I will need to increase this a little bit, move this up and down, increase this. So what I'm trying to do is so that I don't have, so I think this is fine for the portrait, but if I bring this out, I have the landscape which is here. So how can we do it such a way that at the position here I'm going to have a landscape texture, and by the time it gets here I have a portrait. Now simply what I did was to change this side for both, so I can start with the landscape. So what is happening is that the software is reading this from this point coming down. So this is the landscape, so it's reading the one behind towards the left, so it's reading the one towards the right. So this is what it's saying. Then once we come here, it comes to that. So if we bring this out, this is what's going to read, but positioning doesn't matter actually. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I'm going to do is, this is the landscape. I want the landscape to show first. So what I do is I change this from, at this point I change the side from both to front. Then I may need to come here and keyframe that. But for this other one, I'm going to change it from both to back so that it shows that. So I'll keyframe that. So at the time it gets to where I want the image to change, so let's say somewhere here, I want the image to change here, I will still keyframe this, go back to this, record the keyframe, just give it one frame and change both. So this goes to back, keyframe, and that goes to front, keyframe. Then that is how I had that animation. So if you are to play through, you have this moving up, then change into this. See that? So now if you notice this animation I feel is jerky, so what I would do is select this cloner, go to MoGraph. I'm done with the tutorial, I'm just stylizing this. Go to delay and add the kind of spring to it, so just bounces a little bit. So let's make this 65. Let's see what we have. So I will need to hide this and this. So we have this. So if I do this animation, you see this bounces a little bit. So it's not that. So this is pretty much how I did the animation. Like I said, this is not a full tutorial of the whole project. I'm just showing you an overview of how the animation came about. This is how it was done. So if you look at this, you have all this information. I just look at the hierarchy, and if I understand you will not get this, because when I tried checking this back, I didn't really get it until I check it very well. I went back to study the whole animation. So you may need to stop the tutorial, rewind and watch it over and over again before you can understand very well. And I think that is how I did the animation. And if you feel you like this tutorial and you've learned something, please give a thumbs up. And if you have a better way of getting this result, I would want you to please put your comments in the description below so we can also learn together. And like I said, I don't want this tutorial to be long. I'm trying as much to reduce the timing of my tutorial. And if you are new to this channel, please do subscribe to my channel so you can have more tutorials. Hit the bell so that every time I drop new tutorials, you will be notified and you will be one of the first people to watch my tutorial. So I think that is it for today. Do have a lovely day. Bye.